Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to CarverFest 2010. This is a question and answer session with the man himself, Mr. Bob Carver.
Thank you. What an honor.
Thank you very much for everybody that came. Without you, CarverFest would not be CarverFest. We'll go ahead and start with the first question. Are you enjoying your time?
Absolutely, I'm enjoying my time a lot. And after during the question, can we have just questions that, if any questions pop up in your mind while we're talking, just raise your hand and we'll take it from there. I like to do it that way.
Spontaneous.
It's like interrupt me. It's fine. Don't try to be polite and wait till I finish talking. Just raise your hand or say, "Hey, Bob," or whatever.
What is your favorite Sunfire amp, Bob?
Boy, these are tough questions. You know something? Each one is a little different. It's like our children, and we love them all. Even though each one is has a slightly different characteristic and tonality and spatiality, I love them all. So I don't have a favorite. I don't. As a matter of fact, if two of my amplifiers were thrown in the water and they were sinking, I would dive in and save them both.
What amplifier do you like that's not yours?
That's not mine?
Yeah, one you didn't create.
Really a nice, beautiful amplifier that I like a lot is one called a Mesa Baron. It's made by the same company that make Mesa Boogies, except he wanted to add a little style and grace to his name. So when he decided to make amplifiers for home audio guys, he took out some of the jive, took away some of the jive boogie, and made it Mesa Baron, which had a little classier name. But that's a great amp, and influenced me a lot. I had a friend of mine who said, "Bob, you got to come listen to this amp." So I hightailed it over to his house and was exposed to the Mesa Baron. So the answer is Mesa Baron.
Was that a tube amp or?
Tube amp. It's actually what got me going on tube amp a long time ago.
I'm interested. What qualities of that amp brought your ears to attention?
Well, it actually was first of all, it was a well-designed vacuum tube amplifier. And it had the characteristics that we all love in vacuum tube amplifiers. A beautiful sound stage, imaging that's sweet inside of the sound stage, something that envelops us with sumptuous glory and beauty that only tube amps can do. And so those were the things that got me interested in it. And from that came the Silver 7.
Okay.
There's one around here someplace. Where is it? No, it's not here. It's over.
Speaking of the Silver 7, could you give the short synopsis of the Ford TFM45 and why that all came about?
That's a tough question. Let me save it till later. Let me put it in my brain, let my brain think about it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, well, we got to know.
Basically, how the Silver 7 came to pass is what the question really is, right?
Well, why you did the 45? Because you wanted it to be a little bit more like that. I've had discussions with people about that, and I just thought it would be neat to hear the real story.
Okay. Next question, sir.
Okay. This one's a pretty good one. Discuss near-field listening, its pros and cons, problems and solutions. Here's the kicker. Refer specifically to the Sunfire CRM2 ribbons, please.
That's a great question. And the answer is sort of deep. Well, it turns out that this guy named Mr. Gundry, long ago, worked for the BBC. And what he was trying to do and what his mission had been given to him by the BBC, was to create a small loudspeaker that could be listened to in the near field and would replicate as much as possible the sound of the Royal Symphony Orchestra. And this was all in England. And his laboratory was across the street from the Royal Symphony Hall. So he was working on his loudspeaker in his lab, and then he'd get it to sound the way he wanted. He'd run across the street, traffic whizzing by him, and go in and take a listen to the Royal Symphony, and then he'd get that burned in his brain, and he'd run back across the street, continue voicing and working on his loudspeaker. And what he found to get it to sound the way the symphony did in the near field was to have a particular voicing that gave the illusion, even though the speakers were more or less at arm's length, a little farther away than arm's length, but not much, that gave the illusion of a huge, huge sound stage that extended back hundreds of feet, like in a real orchestra, and wider than the speakers and higher than the speakers. And so the ability of a loudspeaker to sound like that requires that it have certain characteristics for listening in the near field, because when we listen in our living rooms, we clearly can't put the space and the distance between us and the speaker that we can in a concert hall, between us and the concert and the all the instruments in the orchestra. And it turns out that when we listen to a ribbon, some of the same characteristics arrive very naturally. And those characteristics are as follows. If you have a ribbon that's extended in space, the sound that comes to us and arrives first is part of the ribbon that's nearest to us. The part that's up here, there's a longer path length between. The whole ribbon speaks, boing, when the music comes along. For each musical event, the ribbon over its whole length speaks at once, boing, and the sound goes boing, and then it's boing, but it takes longer to get to our hearing, to our ears. And that delay, we like that delay. It's as if our ear-brain system is allowed to operate on the information that's carried in that boing sound moment twice, and then 3 times, and 4 times, and multiple times. And so it gets clearer, it gets ever clearer, and we like that. That's what near-field listening is all about, the ability of our ear-brain system to hear the same sound several times. Now, it's very tricky to do that because sometimes it blurs the sound image for us. But if it's done properly, it actually enhances it a lot. And that gets into the way we hear, why we hear, and what we hear. So near-field listening and the ability of a loudspeaker to produce a good sound stage, even in the near field, I believe is very important. It's something that I work for. Of course, I've copied the guys over at the BBC. By the way, his name was Mr. Gundry, and he's now, or his son, is now working for Dolby here in the United States.
I must say, when you did the cinema ribbon, you got that whole thing right, Bob.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I sweated blood, tears, and what is it? Green apples. I sweated green apples on that.
Are there tonal compensations you need to make in your field listening?
Absolutely. There are tonal compensations, timing compensations, wave launch strategies. It all blends together to make the speaker sound the way it does. And my goal was to make a small speaker in the near field sound as if we were listening to a large speaker in the far field, or a full symphony orchestra in the large field. And yeah, who has cinema ribbons here? You do?
Diane knows.
Yeah, you guys do.
We're going to set them up outside later on today for you.
Oh, who brought them? Somebody brought them? Oh,
Diane brought hers.
Diane brought hers.
Diane.
Yeah, okay, cool. Where is she anyway?
She's
Okay,
on
so
finish
here-
with that.
Oh, there you are. I can't see you. Okay. Well, so much for near field.
All right.